So I'm going to be reading the Blackwater Legend number 62. Train robbed. Pitch battle leaves many dead. Outlaws sand train on driverless journey, owned by Leviticus Cornwall. A private train owned by the railroad sugar and oil magnate Leviticus Cornwall was robbed in broad daylight, but by masked outlaws headed north towards the Grizzlies. The outlaws boarded and stopped the train shortly after it had departed from West Elizabeth. Initial cables sent as a printing time indicated the bloody takeover occurred in order to steal railroad bonds from the personal car Mr. Cornwall. Shortly after the robbery, the train was set in motion without a driver or crew, barreling dangerously to the area at a high rate of speed. The train was eventually brought to a stop by engineers and lawmen north of Annesburg, who reported a scene of violent struggle and bloody carnage on board. Some engineers and guards from the train survived the slaughter, but were startled to report much information about it to authorities. Down. Bank boat heist largest robbery in the years. Duchess boys accused. Bounties placed. Furnaces a sensation among residents. Money believed stashed by outlaws. After a bloody shootout that resulted in the seizure of a large quantity of banknotes being shipped by boat, Pinkerton agency officials have restricted access to the town of Blackwater while a massive manhunt is underway. Officials issued bounties on the heads of Dutch Van der Linden's gang, commonly known as Duchess Boys. Banks look to shipping assets via boat as a more reliable means of transportation, impervious to thieves. The deadly attack resulted in the loss of $150,000, largest robbery in the region in recent years. Authorities believe that the men may have stashed the money in Blackwater before fleeing. Reports indicate that many are searching high and low for the stash. A pen in public spaces and neighbors' gardens. Residents of Blackwater view their lockdown with contempt. Businesses who depend on shipments of dry goods, sundries, and catalog sales complain that the Pinkertons have caused the unnecessary burden of life for welfare. Blizzard aftermath in the Grizzlies. Snow melt worries those from flood-prone area. A series of late spring snowstorms rendered the Grizzlies impassable in May, catching many unprepared, having used most of their winter provisions. The snow often measuring feet in many areas, and unusual this late in the season. Reports from riders who have recently encountered the area say that respite is finally in sight. The snow melt is coming quickly with the seasonal warmth, which worries many that rivers downstream will swell and burst their banks, as happened in the late spring of snowstorms of 1883. Planting season is also repeatedly delayed, as many areas are too mighty for work animals to work a plow. Family murdered. Land of lawless. Highway robbery and murder have become a daily affair once more to those traveling near tall trees, Henningstead, Armadillo, or Tumbleweed. Huntington Schrader and his wife and two boys were traveling by wagon when they were held up by heavily armed bandits, believed to be members of Del Lobo gang. Mr. Schrader opened fire, and the shorter of the bandits was soon a corpse. But the taller one, worked in desperation by the death of his companion, found his mark, and Mr. Schrader was soon a corpse too. His wife Isabella stood her ground and fired at the bandits until they fled. Her younger son Isaac had been hit in the incident and soon bled to death. Travelers are warned to avoid the areas as incidents of violence, thievery, and murder are increasing faster than law enforcement can pursue them. So we're up against the Lobo gang, huh? See, 21 dead in attacks. Banks and sages held at gunpoint. Como Driscoll, a man with bloody record. Blood passed during one dead. Reverend Alex H. Hughes was shot and killed for the boisterous concern for the safety of the woman on board a stagecoach, says West Elizabeth. The shameful tragedy is part of widespread disorder led by notorious outlaw Como Driscoll and his gang. Multiple stagecoaches and shipments have been robbed by the Driscoll gang across New Hanover and West Elizabeth. Banks in the region are also said to be on caution as a number of have been held up. Not satisfied with the riches of their plunder, the members of the Driscoll gang are reported to delight in torture and bloodshed as part of their escapades, and left widows and widowers in their wake. Travelers are encouraged to be aware and armed, especially in the area of Big Valley, where the gang is reported to have taken a large ranch as a base of operations, leaving the family and ranch hands dead. Heresy, religious sect recruiting, citizens of Valentine protest. Clenched Chelonians commit blasphemy. The evils of Chelonialism are still flourishing. It's a new practice openly, and this new believes it is a menace to our liberty. Christian citizens of Valentine gathered at a church last Saturday to protest what they and any sensibly minded people consider blasphemy in their midst. The Chelonians have been actively recruiting young men. Valentine wrestles with his own homegrown religious movement. They claim that the true Bible was handed down hundreds of years ago to our great prophet from above. Local religious leaders warn that this blasphemy threatens the future of the region and indeed the country. The Cholonians hold the turtle to be sacred and consider them ancient holy animals to ever be harmed. Protesters were holding signs with the turtle having been crossed out. Mexican border dispute intensifies. Soldiers block passage. President calls for resevering ties. Lieutenant General Francisco Ramirez Torres seized the presidency of Mexico in the bloody coup of 1976. Have relations between so strained with the U.S. among heightened tensions. General Torres has placed troops along the border to deny entry to prospectors, cattle ranchers, and renegade bands of Indians who have taken to raid Mexican settlements. In retaliation with the isolationist tone, President McAllister has called for a ban on trade with Mexico. He said the U.S. has provided resources over the years, including helping end the Apache Wars 10 years ago, and received little in return except hostility. Ancient Bones. Dinosaur hunt continues. New Hanover has a geological wonderland. Helen New Hanover's geological wonderland. Amateur paleontologist Deborah McGinnis is on the hunt, excavating several sites in the state. As fossils pour from the grizzlies, McGinnis asserts that an undiscovered species of dinosaur which she claims could fly, swim, and walk once inhabited the region in prehistoric ages. Labeling the elusive creature as a totalosaurus, she has devoted her life's work to unearthing the remains of the ancient animal, despite geologists saying no evidence exists in the established fossil record. Several universities rejected her work, saying that Ms. McGinnis would be better suited to writing fiction than searching for dinosaurs. Bubonic plague spreads, rising ships quarantine, epidemic bubonic plague has broken out in India and Hong Kong and spread to our troops in the Philippines. Several soldiers have died in Manila of what was called a loathsome disease. Despite the best efforts and centered science to stamp it out, the plague appears to have resurfaced in this country. In New York and Saint-Denis, victims of plague were confirmed, and vessels arriving were given the choice of a doctor visiting each ship or turning around. Any bodies suspected of death from the disease should be immediately burned, even if the cause of expiry is not confirmed as bubonic plague by meteorological examination. War breaks out in the Philippines. I'll read the rest of this. War breaks out in the Philippines. Insurrection against the United States grows. The First Philippine Republic has effectively declared war on the U.S., subjecting to the Treaty of Paris in which the U.S. took possession of the Philippines from Spain after the Spanish-American War. American naval forces have bombarded the city of Iloilo after the first shots were fired. They will be taught the humanity of conquerors. The War Department expects the cessation of hostilities to happen quickly as the American military force is strong and the Filipinos are armed mostly with bola knives, spears, bows, and other handcrafted weapons. American occupation of the archipelago has been continuous, however. Military officials are planning a new humanitarian campaign after hostilities cease. Devoured by cougars, famished animals that make men prey. Out of the West comes an appalling story of fate and two prospectors who were attacked by pride of famished mountain lions. Due to extreme cold and snowstorms last season, cougars in the area have been made desperate from hunger. Their prospectors have begun working when a band of cougars emerged and attacked led by an albino male. Trappers later came across the spot and reported only a few bones were left. Prospectors' names were D. Krog and J. E. Peters. A trapper in the area says he has worked there for 15 years and has not seen so many fierce animals driven by madness by starvation. The Art of Angling by Jeremy Gill. Bluegill. As I have often told keen readers of this column, fishing is for those who are intelligent enough to see it. We are the best way to understand humanity in all its glory. As a famous angler, writer, dare I say it, philosopher, I'm used to the perils of celebrity. Once while signing an autograph for a polio-stricken youth in Kuala Lumpur, he asked for my thoughts of fishing while it was raining. Why, that's the best time to fish, my little fellow. I laughed heartily, slapping him on the back and causing him to cough mightily and, quite frankly, embarrassed both of us. Poor little chap. Life can be very unfair. Fishing taught me that. I always say that some of the deepest introspection into a man's soul happens when he stands in torrential downpour. I was fishing in the rain using live bait near Scarlet Meadows and hooked a monster bluegill, and yet even didn't land him, so there's a metaphor pretty much for everything. Alright, so that about wraps it up.